video, we're going to talk about, is your horse on the forehand? We're going to look at the reasons why this could be, how to recognise it, and how to fix it. So are you making this massive training mistake where you're inadvertently overloading your horse's front end? Keep watching to understand what that actually looks like and the potential damage it could do and how to fix it. What is on the forehand? On the forehand is when the horse carries too much weight into the front end and not enough weight in the hind end. This means that the balance from back to front is downhill, not horizontal or uphill. How can we spot this? When a horse travels downhill, the balance of the horse is coming down into the earth. The neck tends to be low. The horse drops the chest through the shoulders, and this then restricts the forelimbs because they can't move the forelimbs forward from the body because the weight is too far forward over the front end. This in turn affects what happens behind, because when the balance is coming this way, the hind end cannot come underneath, so the hindquarters tends to push out behind the horse. This exacerbates the situation of the downhill balance, because then the horse isn't able to load on the hind end at all anyway. So just to recap, the weight is more over the front feet than it is into the hind feet. The shoulders are restricted. The horse carries the head low. The chest moves forward. The hind end travels out behind the horse. So on the forehand, chest drops forward. Front feet don't step forward. Hind feet don't take a full range of motion and step under the horse. He just plops onto his head. And you can see from the top of his pelvis to the point of his shoulder, it's downhill. The back then also is in a little bit of a hollow because he's dropping his chest forward. So then when we want to change him, we come a little bit higher in the head and neck, use the whip a little bit up by the shoulders, start to invite him to lift a little bit more. Then forward momentum gets a little bit easier. He can then take a bigger step in the front. Good. Good boy. Good boy. And he's less stopping, so he's more forward. So what happens in the ridden, many people with a horse that's stuck a little bit on the front, maybe they're focusing too much on the horse's roundness and making the frame too round and inadvertently putting the horse in a downhill balance. What happens is people push with the legs. They push with the legs here in a horse that's dropped on the front. And so they push into this downhill balance, thinking that they're trying to engage the hind end. That doesn't work because you're in a downhill balance. If you push, you're going to push the horse more forward, if it is willing to go, more forward into the downhill balance. So it doesn't engage, using your legs in this position doesn't engage the hind end. It just enhances the current position that your horse is in. So when you're doing the ridden, you need to think of a little bit of a lift, just gently in the rein contact, lifting the head a little bit up, closing a little bit the seat, and then once the horse shifts the balance, you can then get the balance more uphill. So in the ridden, the correction comes from lifting, not from pushing. And that comes from using the seat. So you're lifting with the back of the thigh and the backs and your glutes, and a little bit your rein. You're saying come up. So you lift a bit, or your cavesson reins on the face, up, directly up. and then close the seat. So you lift the front end out the way. Then you can close the leg. But you can't ask the horse to go more forward from the leg if the balance is downhill, because the horse comes more and more on its face. Section of the video, we're going to look at exercises to help your horse become more balanced and come off the forehand and into a more neutral or uphill balance. So the first exercise is just to teach a lift. So lifting through the chest and through the shoulders. Now this takes practice, and if your horse is really overloading downhill and pushing through the chest, it will be very small to start with. The lift is not about the horse going backwards, because we're actually just trying to engage the thoracic sling, lift the horse up through the chest, and for it to find a new balance. It's also not about holding on to the head and lifting the head up, because that won't work either. The lift comes from this area here, so that the horse can actually push down through the front feet, lift up in the rib cage, in the sternum, and lift the rib cage more up between the horse's shoulder blades. So in order to do that, we first find a little bit of a lift in the head and neck. So take the hand directly up. Then what I've done is use the whip cue up towards the sky. So I use the lift up, and I couple that with a little bit of a click. So a little bit of a speedy click, and then you just get a little bit of a distribution. Yeah, there. So she doesn't necessarily step back, she just comes up. So we let her drop again. So back to the downhill balance, and a little bit overstretching the neck. So then when we want to teach that, we take the line. So it's easy to teach this in a cavesson because you're directly on the front of the face. So we lift, come straight up with a flat hand, lift the head and neck up, not by pulling it up, lift, so up and down, good, and then she just lifts through the sternum, brings the front leg a little bit more further forward, comes a little bit more uphill. So if you're working with a horse that is really struggling and is really pushing, sometimes what they might do is try to push forward and over the top of you. Let it go, reposition them, find another place in the arena to halt or wherever you are, and start again. So it takes time for them to understand I have to push into the ground and push up through my front legs, not just drop forward through my front legs. Don't let them lean on your hand. So it's also not about that they push into your hand and you're holding their head up. They need to be able to lift the head and neck, then lift up through the thoracics and in between the shoulder blades, so they can find a new distribution of weight through those four limbs. In an uphill way, just need to control the left shoulder. Good. Then the front feet can come more forward. So we saw that also with the pony. So once you can do it in the standstill, you can work on doing that in motion as well. Other things we can do to help the horse balance is transitions. So what we can do, we can use our uplift and take that into a transition. So we can break that down from the halt. We go from the halt, lift, then into forward momentum. And then we see if we can sustain the lift. So we're going, lift through the head and neck, lift through the sternum, lift through the chest, and then take that into forward momentum. So the forward momentum doesn't come from the hind leg driving. it first comes from the shoulders lifting out of the way. So it's important to think about that and to understand that you need to get the lift in the sternum for the hindquarters to be able to engage. So we'll do that again. The halt, so I can also do it in the downwards transition. I don't want her to fall on the front, so I'm coming up with the whip. She thinks I want haunches in. Hold. Good. So from the lift, so the head is already up. A little bit of lift, then a little bit of forward. Sustaining the lift. So if they have a little bit of a topple through, then you just lift the head again, lift the shoulders. From a little bit more of a lunging perspective, you can also do the transitions there. So again, I can come directly to the shoulder, lift the head up, lift the shoulders up, then I get more forward momentum. I can also do that through the transition. So I come up, lift, and go. So I want her to stay uphill. I want her to look a little bit more my way. Good. And then the same. Up, lift, up, and then down. And then if she has a little drop too much in the neck, you can lift up through the rein. So the hand is coming up, whip to the shoulder, up, out, forward. So she comes up rather than dropping on her front. So again in the downwards, up, good. So you don't have this big tip forward. Also do that over your pole. So poles is also a great way to work on balance. So you start first of all with one pole. So I want up. Good. So again, what we're looking for when we go over a pole, uphill balance. Up. Good. Good girl. Up in the balance in the downwards transition, then walk. Good girl. Very, very good. Up. Up. So when I want up, talk directly to the thoracics up here. Keep the neck out. Up. Good. So we're really working up and into the shoulders. Just to summarize, with regards to, is your horse on the forehand? Your horse is on the forehand. If they're dropping, they have too much weight pushing this way through the chest. So everything is tumbling forward. And here, what does that cause? That causes a restriction in the shoulders, difficulty moving freely forward, usually related to a low neck carriage and a hindquarters that's not working properly. Over time, that is going to be detrimental to your horse's soundness because you're not using joints correctly. There is an uneven weight distribution through the horse. The horse's front feet are loading too much, so that can then lead to problems directly into the front feet, and also with your pelvis not functioning correctly because you're having too much of the pelvis going out behind. That can lead to hock and stifle problems, SI problems too. All of those problems can then go on to have problems in the spine because your horse is not able to lift and be strong through the back. So it is really important to recognize whether your horse is on the forehand, and if it is, to understand what's going on and help them to correct it. So to teach them how to lift, how to be strong, and how to carry the chest in between the shoulders and come uphill so that they are actually working more in an uphill balance. So to do that, you can teach the thoracic lift from the halt, work on transitions, work on your pole work. What I would really recommend everybody does is to go and have a look at some of your photos and some recent video footage and assess your horse there, so that you're not, first of all, doing it from being with the horse. You're seeing what's going on, first of all, from a photo or a video, because many people think their horse is going correctly just because they are in a round frame. The frame of the horse is not just the roundness of the frame, but it is also the balance. So it's very important to assess your horse's balance. In the comments, tell me about your experience when you look at your photos. Is your horse struggling being on the forehand? I'd love to hear, and I'd love to hear how you go about correcting that as well. If you're looking for any further information, please check out the other videos on this channel. Please follow me on Facebook, Long Drove Holistic Horse Training. I also have a subscription groundwork rehabilitation group. And if you're interested in training, I can train online or in person. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Love to help you. I want to try to help as many horses and humans as possible. Thanks for watching.